Hi, welcome to Escape into a Cause, the podcast inspiring Central Texans to turn good intentions into impact. I'm Stephanie Dyer, a philanthropic rookie, learning how to give back with a little help from my expert friends. Together, we'll share stories of local nonprofits, explore ways to connect, and encourage everyone to step up, unplug, and make a difference. Let's dive in and escape into a cause. Hi, Courtney Dickey.
Hi, Stephanie Dyer.
When do you pass the torch of the Junior League of Austin president?
May 31st. I know, it's like a month and a half. I'm really having sort of an identity crisis. I'm dealing with it. I'm just trying to figure out what's next. When you commit a significant part of your life to something, it's basically been 2.5 years. You had a year as president-elect, and then you had a year as president. And now I'm thinking, what's next? There is a nonprofit studies or philanthropic studies program at Austin Community College. And I was talking to the director yesterday. I was like, Barry, what board should I sit on? Tell me, where do I go from here? He's like, okay, we can get you involved, but you might want to take a beat too. I'm like, I don't know. That's just not in my DNA.
If there's any nonprofits that have a seat open that may speak to your heart,
call me up.
Might.
It was great having a conversation with him because his first question was, what are you passionate about?
What did you say?
Women's leadership. That's what I'm passionate about.
I love that. Okay. Anything around women's leadership?
And child welfare. I'm a mother. I think those are my two things.
If there is a seat opening at a board.
I'm putting it out there.
No,
I'm
you
putting the vibes out there.
Be so lucky to have you.
You're
You're
so
not
sweet.
going to continue to sit on the board at
No.
Junior League. You're just going to be a member.
I'm just going to be a member, a general, somewhere in the crowd member. And I'll go into our third phase of membership, which is sustainer, starting June 1. No meeting requirements, no volunteer hour requirements. I've got some time on my hands, Steph.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
So you're not even going to be active when I'm joining.
No, I'll be a sustainer, but I'll be celebrating you.
Okay, I love that. You have your birthday calls. You'll
I was
hit
just
around
doing those.
2,300 of them
That
by
is
May
correct.
31st.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
For those that didn't hear that episode, Courtney's good brag was calling 2,300 members 365 days over the length of her being president of Junior League of Austin
That's right.
to call and personally say happy birthday to every
Yes.
single member.
I know. I'll still call you next year.
Yay.
You just had a birthday.
I did tax day.
Is
my
it always,
birthday.
how appropriate is that?
Yeah,
for
I
what
got
you
my
do
master's in
professionally?
taxation at UT, so it's lovely. But I didn't end up going tax. I wisened up.
Yeah.
Sorry, tax accountants out there, but
Love it. Tax law, I think, was the worst grade I made in law school. So we're aligned.
I loved the tax classes because they were more strategic and they were
Oh.
research, and I love
Yes.
researching. But then once you're thrown in as a intern, you realize the cold hard truth of getting into tax your first few years,
Yes.
and I couldn't take it. Anyway,
That's fair.
okay, you just talked about women's leadership, but it's going to be
Yes.
interesting what we talk about today. Later in this episode, we're escaping into Austin Angels, an organization changing the way children and families experience foster care through consistent, committed, and relational support. Their work goes beyond the basics to bring dignity, hope, and belonging to the foster care community.
I love that.
But first, we've talked about the philanthropy gender gap. We've
Yes.
talked about how women step up
Yes.
a little bit more than men.
Very much so.
I've been thinking about that recently, though. Men are so good at stepping up in sports. I see it all the time with our
Yeah.
kids. They're always volunteering, always helping with sports.
Yeah.
Even though I see it less in the classroom.
I know. Do you just think that's gender expectations?
Yes,
Yeah.
partially. I don't know. After I had kids, I have this nature versus nurture debate in my head constantly. I think it just magnifies the more children you have a second
Yeah.
child, you just start wondering.
Yeah. You start observing these things.
What are gender norms? What is socialized? What is ingrained?
Yeah,
What is
absolutely.
evolution? I don't know. We need more experts on this show. Men are struggling too. Should philanthropy help, and how can philanthropy help? What are your thoughts?
Help particularly with men? I think so, because I think it helps universally. We've seen and we've talked about so many benefits of philanthropy. We've talked about connection and it addressing the loneliness epidemic, which we know very much exists. We've talked about longevity and general happiness, that actually giving to
And
others.
women live longer than men.
Exactly. Being a part of something bigger, contributing to the world, actually aids in not just your happiness, but the years that you're in this world. Because it has these blanket benefits, I don't know how men couldn't benefit. I just think, and we've talked about this too, it's either not ingrained, it's not part of the expectations, it's not part of the role that they fill in their household. It's just not as easily accessible to them. And I don't know why that accessibility, but of course it would help.
Yeah, it takes me a little bit longer to think about it because approximately 2% of nonprofit donations go specifically to girls and women. So it's really not that much. But when you do think of philanthropy towards a gender, you think women and girls. That's because there's never ending headlines about women and what they go through
Yes.
in all walks of life.
Yes.
I'm a feminist, and that word holds an interesting weight nowadays. And can be loaded for people that say, oh, you're a feminist, you think women are superior, or if it's something about hating on men, that's called misandry. Just for those that don't know, just like misogyny, there's misandry. I'm a feminist, so it's hard for me to at first grasp, oh, there's nonprofits that cater to men. I think it's great. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Shortly after departing the Gates Foundation in June of 2023, Melinda French Gates surprised 12 people with a $20 million grant each. And most of them are doing work focused on helping women and girls' mental and physical health globally. One of the grants went to Richard Reeves, president of the American Institute for Boys and Men. He said, I doubt anyone was more surprised than me. That's because we are typically thinking about the pay gap, assault, and we think of like countries like Afghanistan. We think of women.
Yes.
The world does appear to be in the midst of a masculinity crisis.
You brought up something interesting there, because perhaps women get more involved in philanthropy because they tend to be the beneficiaries of philanthropic work and of service, whereas men, not so much. And rightfully, to all the points that you made, men don't typically tend to be part of a marginalized community unless they have other demographic characteristics that would put them in a marginalized community. But perhaps they're just not as involved because they've never received community service. They've never received philanthropy. They've never been on the receiving end. Therefore, it's a little bit more foreign to be on the giving end.
There is definitely an aspect of that. I also think that men are more silent when they're struggling. They're not as connected.
Absolutely.
They're not as involved in community. Look at Junior League of Awesome with 2,300 members.
Yes.
I just spoke with the president of Young Men's Business League, YMBL.
Yep.
David was great. That's like less than 300. There's a gap in genders of who are showing up in these service leagues. We pointed out in the past, there is YMSL and NCL, which is a mom, son, or daughter service organization.
So many more chapters of NCL in Austin than Young Men's Service League.
Exactly. The crisis appears to be manifesting in part as a mental health crisis. Men are 4 times more likely than women to die by suicide. Suicide rates have risen by 30% since 2010. If men's suicide rates were the same as women's for the past 25 years, 546,000 men might still be alive today. That's greater than the population of Atlanta.
Shocking.
There's a large focus on getting men to therapy, but they do say that alone does not do enough.
Right.
That they need to get therapists that are connected, because a majority of therapists are women. And they say that's only part of the puzzle. Part of this, the suicide rates, the homicide rates, the crime rates that are more committed by men are a problem of relationships, which goes back to getting involved, getting in their community. Here are some recommendations by the experts on which men's organizations they think should deserve support. They have to do with research like the American Institute for Boys and Men, physical and mental health, mentorship, and healthy masculinity. I don't know if you've seen this, but men are having this identity crisis.
Yes.
And there is not a space for them to deal with this, and it ends up pushing them to be radicalized.
Absolutely. I was trying to think, what are large men's service organizations? I think about the Masons, which are steeped in history. When I say history, I mean U.S. history and world history, because Masonic lodges all over the world, it's clouded in secrecy. Even the organizations that are out there that are dedicated to men, they're actually not so public, and they're not so declarative about the work that they do or the services that they provide to their members or how they recruit members. You almost want to say, listen, I appreciate the longstanding traditions of these organizations, but you could help so many more men. You could open the doors for so many other men if they were just able to join and become members of something. Otherwise, there's not that many other organizations, to your point, that are just dedicated towards men's leadership, men's involvement, and men's community organization.
Historically, especially as being someone who's always wanted to be a businesswoman, I struggled with that because I found it so often that men were mentoring younger men, just naturally. Thinking about these stats, thinking about the masculinity crisis today, it makes sense, and it's something to think about.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Court.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. We are escaping into Austin Angels, and we have founder and CEO of Austin Angels, Susan Ramirez. Hi, Susan.
Hi, so happy to be here with you today.
I'm so happy you're here. Tell us about Austin Angels.
Austin Angels was started as this grassroots organization. I say neighbors helping neighbors. And we support children, youth, and families that are experiencing foster care in Central Texas. We serve children, youth, and families from San Marcos, kind of Kyle line, all the way up to Killeen Temple. Children that are in Hayes, Williamson, Travis County is our area of which we serve.
It's been 15 years, and you've gone more nationwide.
We started in Austin in 2010, so we're celebrating our 15 years, which feels like an absolute miracle, especially when you hear the statistics around how many nonprofits are actually still open 15 years later. I was working in corporate America for the first 5 years, so I was not this big visionary, certainly didn't have a vision of a national nonprofit, wanted to change the way that children, youth, and families experience foster care in Central Texas. In 2015, I actually left my corporate America job behind to fully step in to try to scale it here locally. What happened was in 2016, there was a woman in Amarillo who had heard about the work that we were doing, and she called and she said, Susan, I'd like to see if we could bring the program that you're doing in Austin to Amarillo. I thought, well, I think we have a program that we can replicate, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm willing to go in, and felt like this person and I were value aligned, how we viewed things. So I said, hey, let's take the risk together. If you help me co-create this chapter model, maybe we have something that works. In 2018, after 2 years of this pilot program of seeing, do we have a program that can be replicated? And we learned pretty quickly that we did. We opened up our chapter applications and thought, what if we just scaled to 1 or 2 other cities? But my goodness, foster care is in such a need, not just in Central Texas, but in every city across the country. There's a massive, massive deficit in how we treat our children and set them up. Oftentimes, children who experience foster care going through a system that is so challenged and hard, they end up with the statistics that say 50% chance don't graduate high school. They don't go on to earn a college education. Very few do, only 3%. And when you are a ward of the state, you get a full ride. 97% of them are not. Not that the end all be all is getting a college degree. But what happens is that as children navigate this really challenged system, they end up committing suicide, being human trafficked, end up further populating our homeless population, our prison population. Once I saw that the same programmatic impact was happening in Amarillo, I thought, we really do need to scale this. We opened it up in 2018 and started to scale outside of Texas. Today, we have 19 chapters operating in 14 states. Now, we do have a big vision. A vision is that by 2050, we want to reach and serve every single child, youth, and family that's experiencing foster care in our country by 2050, which is a big, tall, hefty order. And this is incredible, but we're serving 3,000 children on a monthly basis in our programs. But when you see that there is such a gap between where we are today and where we need to be, we have a lot of work to do. The most exciting thing about our organization is that there's so much opportunity and there's so much momentum behind us because we have a proof of concept that our programs are transforming the foster care experience and that we are equipping children to rise and reach their fullest potential. That's some of the fuel and excitement why I wake up every single day is like one more kid in our program, one more kid.
I love that. We've talked about this a little bit. I've noticed there's at least 5 nonprofits serving the Central Texas area that cater to either children or families that go through foster care. Would love to hear how Austin Angels is differentiated from other organizations.
There are a lot of resources in Central Texas. Now, depending on where you go in the country, some there are, some there's none whatsoever. I would say in Central Texas, there's a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of good around this population. At Austin Angels, we have a belief and look at foster care in a way that I would say that none of our other partners quite look at it that way. There are tons of organizations that are meeting the immediate need. And let me tell you, the immediate need is vast and big. You'll have organizations that do things like offer a bed to a kid who's placed in a home where there isn't a bed. We need organizations that meet those kind of very urgent needs, which is a bed. There's organizations that do backpacks and bags because no child should have no dignity when moving from home to home. What we're trying to disrupt in the foster care space is what we know children will move on average 7 times in 2 years. I try to explain that, putting it in perspective, that a stranger will most likely pick you up, put you in the back of the car, put your belongings into what is a trash bag, unless there's an organization willing to give a kid a bag to fill their belongings with, to show up at a complete stranger's home, knock on a door, not knowing what's on the other side of that door, move schools. What happens to a child academically every time they move, they're 6 months behind. These kids are bright and they're resilient, but what they are facing is unimaginable heartache, trauma. We can't expect for kids to graduate on time. What we're trying to do is intervene from them moving 7 times. We have so many amazing caregivers who decide, I want to foster and I want to make a difference. How do we prevent homes from closing and prevent children from moving from home to home? When we think about foster care, we're literally like, how do we go upstream so that we can combat these statistics and these outcomes? What we do is we wrap community around that family. If you decide to foster, I believe you should be radically supported in your journey and not with one bed or one bag. How does it look for a group of people to be so committed to the longevity and the impact that foster home can make by providing intentional relationship building and mentorship, seeking to understand what are the barriers that you are facing and how can we meet those? An example I like to say is when I started the pilot of this program in 2013, I was matched with a single foster mom named Esther, and Esther was raising 6 teenage boys. And she had a high financial need to support these boys because there's this big misconception that when you foster, nobody's getting rich. In fact, there's not even enough funding to cover basics, which is why there's such a need for organizations to help fulfill those kind of basic needs. When I showed up to her, I said, listen, I want to walk alongside your family. I want to be able to support you, but I don't actually know what that looks like. I don't have in my idea a magic wand that says I get to help fix this experience for you. Will you help me co-create this and build this together? Because I believe that I can go deeper with you, but help me understand what that would look like. Esther was like, okay, listen, I've got some financial needs, basic things like toilet paper, paper towels, laundry soap. Those things are going to be a challenge every single month for as long as I have these 6 boys because they are burning through these kinds of things. I'm like, oh, I can meet that need. That's something that I can do. I got so granular to say, what kind of toilet paper? Because if you're not using generic, I'm not showing up with generic. I want to show up with the exact product that you need and want and desire because you should be dignified in this. This is not a hand-me-down. This is meeting real needs of real humans. What we also identified in this program with Esther and these 6 boys was that every single boy had something unique about them. I say that every single child should have at least one healthy adult who knows the color of their eyes and the passions of their heart. Now, I have 2 boys, Ryder and Reed, and they are wildly different human beings. They wear 2 different size clothes, shoes. They have different tastes, different style, different interests. Walking alongside Esther and these 6 boys, I wanted to get so radical to pursue each one of them individually. Jonathan wanted to make the football team. Ryan was in band. Each one of them, it was about how do we actually see them and provide for them over and over again. And I say the Love Box program is the conduit that gets into the heart of the child that creates relationship healing and bonds that form. And it says to that kid, I'm not giving you something that you don't have choice in, that doesn't fit you. These are not hand-me-downs. It's literally saying, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite size? Do you want me to take you to the store so you can buy your own? Or do you want me to bring you the orange t-shirt? You want to pick it out. Just as I would treat my own children, I said, we've got to do this within the foster care space, to get so radical in our pursuit, to walk alongside them with so much dignity that they should have choice. And when you're in foster care, you feel like you have none. I know you asked, how are we different? I would summarize it to say we're in pursuit of building the most intentional, tailored program that meets the unique needs of children, youth, and families and having this aggressive desire to reach and serve every single person who's experiencing it.
I've read the outcome is really positive for those that are in your program, and that less households are closing their foster care. We can get into that all in a bit. 15 years of impact. Let's dive into those two programs a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you mind walking us through that?
In Central Texas, we serve 300 children on a monthly basis in our program, and our program is monthly. The support happens over and over again. The average amount of time, if somebody's looking to volunteer and get involved, we say that not everybody's called to foster and not everybody's called to adopt, but everyone can play a role and make a difference. What we are trying to attract are people that care about people and kids in their own community who may not be called to foster or adopt, but want to play a difference. What we do is we train and we equip volunteers. We take them through a curriculum where they become trauma informed and help walk alongside people from a real bottom up approach to foster care, meaning that we don't think that our volunteers know how to solve or fix anything. We literally pair people to do life with one another. So our Love Box program started in 2013, seeing every person with inherent value and worth and seeking to understand what are the barriers and how can we remove them. The Love Box program, it's not about a physical box. It's about being in community with one another, seeing where there are opportunities to fulfill needs. It could sometimes look like, I need a babysitter, or, hey, I'm a foster mom and I got to go to court today. I'm heartbroken over this because I think I'm going to lose this baby that I've loved for 2 years and I'm really devastated. It would look like, I'm going to come and hold your hand and I'm going to sit with you in the courtroom and I'm going to give you and your husband a night out and I'm going to be there with the babes, or I'm going to take the kids away to go do something fun. It is not a box filled with things. It is intentional giving, relationship building, and mentorship. That's our main program. And then our Dare to Dream program is a one-to-one mentorship program for youth ages 11 to 22. And they're working on developmental milestones. They meet twice a month, every month for an entire year, making sure that if a teenager is turning 16 years old, that we are working with that youth to get a driver's license, open up a bank account, understand financial literacy, looking at jobs, doing job prep, job resume skills, interview skills, that we're actually giving practical knowledge and skills to our young people so they know how to navigate and that they're prepared once they age out at 18 years old. We've got curriculum to help our volunteers do that. But at the basis of everything that we do, it's about relationships, because it is the only thing that is going to change foster care. And that is what our programs are built on.
That's beautiful, because I truly believe it. Some of the things that you just mentioned are things that a lot of us, we get that feedback in those relationships and we learn those things at home.
Yes.
I've mentioned this before, but I lived in 14 different places in 7 years, but this is with my biological parents. And the difference I think that makes alone. And what did you say the average was for 2 years?
7 different placements.
Just from someone who has gone to 3 different high schools and 4 different middle schools, I will tell you, I can't imagine the strain that puts on the child. And they don't even know it. You're so malleable as a kid. You don't even know what's happening at the time. It's not until you look back and go, oh, that hurt me. The addition of instability in your life as a child, the great thing is that it does create some resilience, but it really does set you back.
Yes, that's what we find, is that these kids are so resilient. And is that actually a good thing? When we talk about the 7 different moves and the trauma around the different moves, it's 7 new schools, new communities, new friends, if you even make them. And attachment is a thing that lacks within children who are in foster care. Why would I get attached knowing that I'm about to move again? I can't tell you how many kids are in our program that have no sense of belonging. I belong to the state. I am a ward of the state, but I don't actually belong to anybody or anything. When we talk about relationships having the power to heal, it is that for our organization, if I could sum it up, it would be, how do we create a sense of belonging? Because if we belong to something, that's where we can flourish.
I love that so much. You had this in your impact report. 30 to 50% of foster families quit within their first year of having a foster care child. 1 in 5 former foster youth will become homeless after 18. 60% of youth formerly in care fall below the poverty line. That's 60%. That's over half fall below the poverty line. Those statistics alone just tell you this is a very vulnerable group of people that we need to show up for. and we need to build relationships with and stable relationships. I know there's some community engagement events. Do you want to speak to that?
Our big call to action is to call everyone to play a role in this. I always say, tell me what you do for a living and I'll tell you how you can impact foster care. For us, we want foster care to become a thing that people are not afraid to touch. Oftentimes when I'm speaking, and if I say like, how many of you think foster care is broken? Everybody in the room would raise their hand. While that may be true, my point of view is that it doesn't have to be that way. Every person that's raising their hand in this room can actually play a part of changing it. For us, we like to invite people who may not feel like I have the time to invest in the Love Box program or the Dare to Dream program and commit 2 times a month, every single month for an entire year. We give people the opportunity. Right now, we're getting ready for Mother's Day. We have a big Mother's Day brunch that we're having. And we've called all these partners to throw this really intentional event for our moms and our youth who've aged out who also have children. We do these incredible kind of community calls to action all year long. We had spring break camp, we have summer camp, we have a Mother's Day retreat, we have a Father's Day event, we do an entrepreneur workshop and a Chick-fil-A Leader Academy. There's back to school events and Christmas events. There's so many incredible community partners that we have where I can call on them and say, hey, Whole Foods, we're going to do this beautiful juice bar. Would you like to donate the juice? Or, hey, flower company, we're going to have florals. Would you donate the florals? And then I'm going to put out a volunteer call to action to say, do you have a giftedness to know how to put flower arrangements together? Maybe you come in and donate your time and you do the floral arrangements to help make it beautiful. Maybe you have a giftedness to help with numbers or organization. We want every single person that cares about kids in their community to look at Austin Angels and say, what can I do to further the mission? We have so much opportunity, whether you're volunteering in a service project, whether you have a small company that wants to give back in some way, we can help you find that way. Just last week, I had a phone call from a car shop. They do oil changes and tire rotations and all these things. And I was like, that's awesome because we have young people that are purchasing cars and we'd love to be able to send them through your shop to give a recommendation. Is this a good car? Is this not a good car? Or what about oil changes? Can you offer a discount for our families that have oil changes? Because financially, their resources are going to the kids. If we can build a partnership where you're in our program and you get free oil changes, hallelujah. There's just so much opportunity for people to get involved.
In terms of mentors and those that are involved, are y'all short-staffed or do you feel like volunteers are really showing up? How are you guys doing in terms of filling those spots?
When we talk about how many children there are in the country, there's 400,000. We're serving 3,000 on a monthly basis. Massive gap. If you've got the time to be able to give, we want you. We need people that say, I'll go all in with a family. I'll go all in with a kid and I want to commit this time. Yes, we need more.
I love your passion and I'm so impressed by your mission and your goals. The fact that you're not just serving the children, you're serving the entire family is so important. Recognizing the parents, helping the parents, they should be rewarded for taking in these children.
They should absolutely be celebrated.
I love it. I'm going to come to you right now and say, are people like me needed? I've always been saying, follow this podcast if you're looking for your cause, if you're looking for new causes to get involved in. What speaks to you? For me, I have financial literacy, very good at that. I have an accounting background. I'm a CPA. Also, I was pregnant at 18. I was a young mom. So what really speaks to me is moms, young moms, teen moms. I couldn't believe this, but I looked up 7 out of 10 girls aging out of foster care become pregnant by 21, which is significantly higher than the general population. There's definitely ways for me to step up. And just out of curiosity, for people that are like that say, hey, I want to step up for these type of children, is that available for volunteers?
Yes. The interesting thing is that of those kids who age out or even in care who have kids, 75% of those kids will go into the system. What we know, though, is that if kids are in our program, then we don't keep repeating the same generational cycles. When we talk about going upstream, our programs go all the way upstream to prevent the continuation. What's so interesting about our program is, let's say you step forward. First thing you do, go onto our website and say, I want to learn more about how to be a Dare to Dream mentor. You fill out an application, case manager calls you and has about a 2-hour intake phone call with you. I always say it's like therapy, where they're just sitting there asking you tons of questions and they're typing in all this information about who you are as a human being. Where do you you live? What do you like to do? It's almost like building out a profile of you and who you would be best matched with. You've got some lived experience. You are a young mom, and so you believe that you could offer some real value to another young mom who's trying to navigate adulthood all while trying to raise a baby. That is a real thing and a real need for our young girls in our program. What happens is our case managers are also doing intake calls with young people. A Match.com algorithm is being developed where a case manager then says, okay, Stephanie's going to be perfect with Amanda. They live in the same zip code. They have the same dreams and desires and wants and what she has the ability to give. We're matching people to do life with. And then your case manager over you would help in the navigation of those milestones and also making sure that Amanda's needs were met, that your needs were being met, and then there's coaching all along the way. It's not like we pair people and say, great, now go and figure it out. It's a real tailored approach of coaching and support for you and training for you. You are in the home of Amanda, working with her and her baby and helping to meet needs. And when there is a need, let's say Amanda wants to go to school and you're trying to figure out the voucher, you call your case manager and say, hey, help me navigate this. Or we're looking for a little bit of a stipend to help with sending Amanda to a numbers camp or something like that. Then we would be able to meet some of the needs that Amanda has and be in partnership with you to help transform Amanda's life and experience.
Amazing. There's all different nonprofits that we interview, and some of them you could say, hey, you just can show up once a quarter, a few times a year, the food pantries or whatever they may be. Courtney and I, in our Topics That Matter segment, we go over the fact that there's a loneliness epidemic. We need to build more relationships. And this is a great opportunity for those that want to not only build a great relationship with another person, but also have a lot of purpose and meaning in that relationship. Okay, fantastic. I would love to jump into some stories.
I literally have 1,000 stories, but I think one of the stories I like to always tell when you're talking about what is the foundation of community for us and how does it look. A couple of years ago, we had a mom, young in her late 20s, had 2 small boys of her own, her and her husband. She was a stay-at-home mom and felt like, I've got some more capacity to love. She decided that she was going to become a licensed foster parent. And the day that she was placed with her baby, she was matched in the Love Box program. This Love Box program supported her. The mom went to the hospital, picked up a brand new baby. When she was deciding to foster, she said, I will take infants because I want them younger than my 2 boys. We matched her in the program and over 2 years formed into an unbelievable bond and friendship between the Love Box leader and the foster mom. They became like best friends and literally was living out community with one another. The Love Box leader would go to court with the mom, birthdays, celebrations, holidays. They became like sisters. The little baby at 2 years old, they were moving to the adoption process and there was a distant relative that stepped in and that baby ended up being transferred over and it was heartbreaking. This was the mom's first experience with foster care. I remember hearing the story at a staff meeting where a case manager came back and told us the story that after the baby had gone home, the Love Box leader had come and packed all the baby stuff because it was just too emotional for her. She went in and she packaged everything up for her and basically shut the door because the mom could not stomach going in there. That was her baby. She had raised that baby for 2 years. This is the goal of foster care. The number one goal is reunification. There is a big push for biological families to be caring for kids over foster. This mom's so devastated and the Love Box leader comes back after the baby leaves that next day. She knocked on the door and her husband opened the door and she said, where's Samantha? The husband was like, she's in the bathroom in the fetal position, basically. She won't get off the bathroom floor. She is completely destroyed and devastated. The Love Box leader had brought Starbucks over, muffins, handed it to her husband, walked into the bathroom and laid down behind her on the bathroom floor and basically just held her. And they just cried over we're losing this baby. When I think about community, I believe we can do as human beings such hard things when we do them in community with other people. In that particular story, what's so unbelievable is that mom was like, I'm never fostering again. This is so heartbreaking. She's gone on to foster 6, 7, 8 kids at this point, and her Love Box leader is still with her, dedicated to helping her kind of do this work right alongside her. We have the most incredibly selfless caregivers who are going through such hard things. And our goal is to wrap so much community around caregivers that they continue to do the good work that they are called to do, that you don't close your home, so that kids do stay in placement. Because every time a caregiver says, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, then a kid moves from home to home.
That's a heartbreaking but beautiful story. Not only is it where maybe the mom would have given up that child in the first year, but may not have opened their doors again without that support, and clearly helped so many other children going through the foster care system after that. To have extra capacity in your 20s with 2 children, there's so many people that just can't even handle 1 or 2 children of their own, and life is hard.
Life is hard.
I'm so glad that it's showing up for those families that are opening up their doors. I'm assuming you have some more stories. I love hearing these.
I'll tell you about our Dare to Dream Youth of the Year last year and our Dare to Dream Youth of the Year this year, because I think both of them have just remarkable stories. In 2024, we named a young man named Abel our Youth of the Year, probably one of the most remarkable young men I've ever known. He was the oldest of, I believe, 9 children. They got removed when he was 15 or 16 years old, goes into a shelter, gets separated from his siblings, makes his way to a foster family that then adopts him at the age of 18 years old. The family hears about our program and says, hey, we need mentors for our kids. And this family is so unbelievable. These 2 parents, Chris and Jana, they are considered dinks, double income, no kids kind of thing, living their best lives, decide I want to foster. I'll take one, gets a sibling set, gets 2 boys, then gets 2 of the sisters. And this young man, Abel, lives as the oldest of all of these kids, high in responsibility, takes on the role of a father figure, doesn't have much of a childhood himself, gets matched with a guy named Connor, a young professional in his mid-20s, decides, I think I've got something to give in terms of extra time, and I want to be a mentor. Connor starts walking alongside Abel. They've now been a part of each other's lives for, I believe, 4 years in our program. Connor and Abel develop this most beautiful relationship of like big brother, best friend, and they literally are doing life together all the time. What was so cool about Abel's story was that the statistics say he should have never graduated high school. The statistics say he should never be in college, that he probably won't grow up and contribute back to society. But I always say that behind every stat is a face, a name, and Abel's the kindest, most incredible human being, gets matched with Connor. He graduates from high school, gets adopted at 18, and with Connor, drives him to San Antonio. He enrolls at UTSA. They move him into a dorm. A barrier that we identify for Abel is that he's taking public transportation from UTSA to come back and visit his siblings. With our community partner at City Limit Subaru, we went to them and said, hey, we've got a transportation challenge for this young person. He needs to get a job and we want to be able to give him a resource. He's obtained his driver's license. He's doing great in school. He's achieving all of his developmental milestones with his mentor. Can we pull our funds together? Do you have something on the used lot that we could give Abel? They came back to me and they were like, we think Abel is remarkable and we would like to give him a brand new 2024 Subaru Impreza. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the incredibleness of community and living it out. Connor and Abel are big runners. That's how they've bonded. They're both athletes. With the Boston Marathon in February last year, we had his adoptive family. We had all the people that loved Abel, our whole crew. We had about 50 people out there. And Abel had no idea that Connor was in on it. But as they were crossing the finish line, we had all these people 1 block from the finish line standing in front of of a big Dare to Dream Youth of the Year banner, and behind the banner was a brand new car that he had no idea. His family meets him at the finish line. Connor's with him running the race the whole time, and he comes around the corner, and I say, come here, and he's like, what is all of this? I invite Julie Herrera, who's the principal owner of City Limits Subaru, and she comes up to him and was like, we have heard your story, and we think you are incredible, and we want to give you a 2024 Subaru Impreza. Hands him the keys. The sea of people part. All these confetti cannons, poof, go off, and he sees his car there. The reason why I like to tell that story is like, we don't give cars to every single kid in our program, but it's such a beautiful story of redemption and hope and what is possible when a community comes together and lives out their part. Chris and Jana said, I can foster. Connor said, I can mentor. City Limit Subaru said, I can help. We have a small volunteer group. We call them the Grandma Brigade. And it's this army of grandmas that have formed. They're out of Dripping Springs. They're incredible. And they're our office angels. They make us lunch for our staff. They just are the people that we call when we have something extra. I called him and I said, hey, Abel's getting a car. How do you want to help with this? And they're like, we're going to do gas for a year. Every single grandma went into their community, collected all these dollars. When he got his car, the head of the Grandma Brigade, name is Judy. Judy says, Abel, we heard about your story and we want to do gas for a year. I just think that is the power of what happens when people come together and say, not on my watch. Are we going to let kids age out and end up on the street? Our Youth of the Year this year, her name is Crystal. She went into foster care at the age of 10, was born into addiction and poverty, lived in a car with her single mom for the first 10 years of her life. Mom dies at 10 years old. She goes into foster care. Every statistic that you hear about children moving, she said, Susan, I moved so many times, I can't even tell you how many times I moved. She had over 17 psychiatric visits. She wanted to commit suicide, had no hope, was pregnant at 17 years old, ends up in a shelter here in Austin. Her shelter director calls us and says, I've got a young girl who could use a mentor. Gets matched with a woman. And for the last year, Crystal was able to get an apartment, get her driver's license, land a job, is one of the most incredible young women I've ever known. So resilient, but so determined not to create the same life that she experienced for her daughter. She came to our gala, and what I find so amazing is that so many of these young people want to play a role and a part in fixing and changing it for the next generation. One of the things we always ask our young people is, what is your desire in terms of the foster care space? Because we've got councils and committees. We love to give platforms. And we ask them, do you want to speak? Do you want to tell your story? Do you want to be on camera? Crystal's like, I want to speak. If I have any opportunity, I'd like to speak, to tell the world about what it's like to actually experience foster care. We asked her to come and speak at our gala this year. And she came and she spoke. And public transportation, another issue. She would take an Uber to drop her daughter off at school, go then to walk to a bus stop, take a bus to work. She worked at a Whataburger and made her way all the way up to manager, saved $4,000. Now she's 18 years old with a 2-year-old at this point. Hear this story, call my friends up again at City Limit Subaru and say, we've got another incredible youth. We're going to name her the Youth of the Year. Would you like to help us with a car? At our gala, she got up and she was telling her story with so much strength and dignity. And when she gets done, Julie comes up and says, we don't ever want you to have to worry about your transportation issues. We know that you've saved $4,000. We want you to keep that $4,000 and we're going to give you a brand new car. And the Grandma Brigade came back and gave her a gift card. And then another donor prepaid her car insurance for an entire year. Another donor gave floor mats and another donor car wash for a year. So it's all these people coming around these young people to say, we can do better.
I love that. Abel and Crystal's stories are so beautiful. I feel very strongly about Crystal's story because of being a young mom. I do want to mention one thing about kind of having a child so young and just explain this, because I think people that don't have children young understand it, is that Crystal didn't have the support system that who's now my husband and I had. Despite the support, we had our apartment paid for between scholarships. We had our tuition paid for. That said, I still did not have a car. I did not get my license till after I had my child. I walked to Starbucks to work every day by the 4 a.m. shift. I worked as a nanny 7 days a week when my son was born, and I would be able to bring him 5 days a week while I was going to school at night. What I remember most is that when I had him and when I was pregnant, there was so much shame and disappointment around it that a lot of people said, I'm not going to help you so you learn your lesson. And that is the absolute opposite you want to do. So when I see people who are my age now in their 30s having children and everyone flowers them with gifts and love and joy and congratulations, I look at young teen moms and going, they're not getting that. That's what I mean by
That
being
awareness.
a teen mom and just understanding that there's a different type of mentality, especially more even towards the girl. She is probably a fantastic mother, and that I'm sure inspired her and made her want to do better. And I think that's a beautiful story. So let's switch gears. I make guests give a good brag outside of the nonprofit space. What is something that you're proud of that you've been doing recently?
I feel like my greatest brag are my 2 boys. They are my whole life. I feel so passionate about motherhood. When I talk about every single child should have at least one healthy adult who knows the color of their eyes and the passions of their heart. Man, do I try to do that with my boys, to celebrate them. I feel like the whole world will try to tell you who you are. And it is my greatest desire to just relish and be in awe of them and the desires of their heart. I guess the big brag with them is that they are both in baseball, and I love baseball, maybe borderline obsessed. I am like totally—
You're a baseball mom.
I am a hardcore baseball mom. I know all the kids. I breathe life over every single one of them as they're walking up to the plate. I'm also the resident DJ. What that means is that when they're walking up to the plate, I push a button and it says, now batting, Ryder Ramirez, number 12, and their music goes on. And it brings me a lot of joy and it makes the boys really excited. There's my brag. I'm a little resident DJ at the ballpark.
I tell everyone about their good brag. If you're a parent and you're really showing up as a parent, that is worth bragging about, because this is not a world of
100.
parents that are showing up for their children all the time. Even if it's normalized maybe in your neighborhood, it's not across the board. And my 16-year-old and 12-year-old, I still read to them in the living room and I say, that's my good brag. I love resident DJ. That's so much fun at baseball games. It hypes everyone up. So I
Yes.
bet you're all about it.
Yes, I feel like everything in my life is up for debate. Like, am I a good leader? I don't know. One could debate it. Am I a good friend? I don't know. Are you a good mom? 100. That is the one thing that I feel like is the non-negotiables in my life, you know?
I think
love
that's great. Love that. Okay. Now we want to give listeners chance for bragging rights, and how can they be more connected and show up for Austin Angels?
I'd say the number one thing, if anything that I said has sparked interest or joy, or I want to learn more, go to austinangels.com and sign up for our newsletter. It's so important because that's where we put all of our information. So all of our impact goes there, but all of our one-off needs, community needs, Love Box, Dare to Dream, everything is pushed through our newsletter. Of course, we're on all the social channels, but I would say the number one thing that you can do is sign up for our newsletter. If you feel like you want to get deeper involved and you're really looking for the opportunity, financial resources are our number one need of our business. We have a program called the Angel Alliance, and those are the most committed, dedicated people to our organization. We have a $15,000 donor who is matching dollar for dollar everybody who signs up in the month of May, because it's National Foster Care Month.
Go do that in May.
Go do it.
Anything reoccurring as little as $15 a month, you'll get matched.
Yes.
Real quick, just going back to the mentors, there's the Love Box leaders, and then there's the mentors of the Dare to Dream. Can you just tell real quickly, what does that commit look like?
The Dare to Dream, it's a year-over-year commitment. You're visiting with your youth twice a month, every month for a year. Now, many people do more, but that's the bare minimum. In our Love Box program, it's a once-a-month commitment. You see the family one time a month. Again, most people do more than that, but that is the bare minimum of the commitment year over year.
Great. Okay, well, show up, give your recurring donation in National Foster Care Month in May. Thanks so much, Susan. This has been fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Hey, listeners. So what I love about Susan Ramirez, she didn't wait until she had a grand plan or a 5-year strategy. She just knew a foster mom with 6 teenage boys. Think about that for a minute. 6 teenage boys needed help. And instead of spiraling into, I don't know what to do, she asked. That's it. And enter a box filled with groceries and notes of encouragement. And then the foster mom said, here comes my love box. Boom, a movement was born. One box turned into a second box, which turned into relationships, which turned into trust, which eventually turned into Austin Angels, a nonprofit that now walks alongside thousands of kids and families in the foster care system. She didn't set out to build a national nonprofit. Susan just wanted to help. When she wasn't sure how to help, she asked. And that simple act of showing up consistently sparked a movement. And don't we all want to show up like Susan? Or have a business that shows up like City Limit Subaru? Or even show up as a community, like the Grandma Brigade? Because the Grandma Brigade is absolutely what I want to do when I'm older. I don't know what they do, but I'm in. This is the heart of Austin Angels. Building relationships rooted in trust and love. It's not about grand gestures. It's about being there month after month, box after box. So how do you earn your bragging rights? As Susan said, you don't have to foster a child to support one. Here's how you show up. The Love Box program. Deliver monthly care packages and encouragement to a foster family. And like Susan mentioned, it's also about being a support system for a family that can use someone to rely on. The Dare to Dream mentorship. Guide youth aged 11 to 22 as they navigate life's challenges. So you're not ready to commit. Volunteer. Show up at an event, get involved, and support the community, and you can learn a little bit more about Austin Angels. Remember to subscribe on the newsletter at austinangels.com. That's where you're going to learn about everything going on. Remember in May that you're going to get your donation match if you join the Angel Alliance. You can become a monthly donor. Even $10 a month makes a difference. Okay, and also Court and I talked about supporting men. Philanthropies dedicated to men makes a lot of sense. Better men benefit everyone. If you're a man looking to make a positive impact, you can consider mentoring through the Dare to Dream program like Connor. Male relationships matter and make the world a better place. Connor showed us that that's possible. Special thanks to Nightlight Insurance for making this podcast happen and for your $1,000 donation to Austin Angels. Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Ashlyn O'Neill for digital content management, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for music, Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios. And next week, we escape into E3 Alliance with the entertaining and insightful Kyle Sipe. We will discuss how transforming education systems through data and collaboration can ensure all students succeed. You won't want to miss it, so I hope you join us next week as we escape into a cause.